Coach, what did you attribute the big difference between your guys' play in the first half and the second half, where you guys so much better as the game went on?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a combination of things. I think our guys settled down, are able to talk about, some of the things that we need to do better, obviously, when you make some halftime adjustments. And, to their credit, they're a mature group. They understood we didn't play to the standard. I thought they worked very hard that second half, but, as you guys know, and they know even better, you're playing a good team, you got to start faster than obviously the way we started.
Paige, then Austin.
It looked like there was a couple times on the sideline when maybe there was a timeout or a change of plays that you guys were out on the field and you're kind of maybe trying to light a fire under them. What were those conversations like on the sideline in that game?
Yeah, well, I'm in the booth, but I think for the most part, from what I can gather, it's typically, guys encouraging each other, fighting for each other, any adjustments that we're trying to make, from series to series, going through those things. We're not obviously proud of the outcome, but we're proud of the way the guys continue to fight and, keep each other accountable. So I'm pretty sure that's what the messaging was. I know it's definitely coming from the coaches, and I'm sure it's being articulated through player to player.
Ricky Gibson, somebody did a little bit of run tonight. Is that something you foresee trying to push him little by little, like 10 snaps a night, 15 or 20 this week? Or is that something like continue to push him to get him a little more playing time? And then two, it felt like the night y'all weren't as aggressive blitzing as you've been in the first couple of years. Is that something you need to get back to, or is that just kind of perception? What do you think it was?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the first question. We definitely like Ricky Gibson. We feel like he's, one of the freshmen that's continuing to grow and continue to get better, week in and week out. So, my stance hasn't changed. We want to play as many guys as we possibly can and develop some depth and be able to, play at a high standard, coming down the back stretch of the season. So, every week's a new week, but as he continues to get better, we'll continue to try to get him more repetitions. As far as the pressures, I think at the end of the game, the numbers came out, just about what they were, for me in a normal game, based on this season and last season. But, we've been getting to the quarterback before, most of the year, at least the first two games. And, and as long as we can do that, we'll pick our spots when we want to pressure. But at the end of the day, we're going to do whatever we need to do to try to give us the best opportunity to win. And, it just may have looked that way, but, when we self-scout, our numbers ended up actually being what they've been, for the first two games.
Brent and Vince.
I don't think very much threw the ball in the air over 20 yards according to the PFF stats. What are teams doing to you guys, or what did they do, at that second level, that kind of underneath stuff that you guys have to clean up?
Yeah, they did a good job, getting him on the move a little bit with some of their boot games and, perimeter kickouts, if you will. And, obviously ball in hand, we got to do a better job of tackling guys and getting them on the ground. But, we think we have a pretty good pass rush. We think a lot of teams will, try to get the ball out as quickly as they can. But yeah, he was pretty effective that night, getting the ball away, as quickly as he can. It's some different, quick 3-step games and things of that nature.
Coach, in season, what do you guys do, specific drills or emphasis to try to improve on tackling after a week like this past Saturday?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We continue to, try to eliminate, obviously, what kind of missed tackles are you missing? Is it not wrapping up? Is it not bringing your feet? Because we won't practice tackling, whether we, tackled at a 100% clip or obviously the night like we had Saturday night, we're going to always try to emphasize tackling. But what kind of tackles showed up? We obviously had some open field missed tackles that we need to get addressed. So we try to put them in those game-like situations best we can. Obviously, we're not taking guys to the ground, but as far as our footwork goes, our pad level, where our eyes are, we try to make sure we're emphasizing those particular tackles.
Adam, then Ben.
Yeah, just following up on that on tackling. When you're seeing that on film with the players, is it more criticizing the players of what went wrong with a missed tackle, or are you asking questions about why it happened?
Yeah, I think everybody has their own style and how they address. I can't speak for all coaches, but, like I tell those guys, we're all in this thing together. Those guys are an extension of me, so yeah, I ask questions, what did you see here? Do you understand why you missed this tackle? I'm a big why guy. Why didn't we make this play? Why didn't we make this play? And a lot of times they'll be able to articulate, exactly what happened. And if they can't, as I tell them, that's my job to explain it to you so it doesn't occur again. So, we have healthy discussions in there. You know, you guys have all heard me, you know, talk about our culture and who we are. You know, love, trust, and urgency is extremely important to me. You know, and if you love somebody, you should be able to tell them the truth. So I think our guys understand the level of love that we have for each other. And, you know, I don't look at it as criticizing. I look at it as correction and trying to help those guys, you know, get to where they want to get to. And that's being the best version of themselves on and off the field. So it's very healthy discussion.
Jim, when you went back and watched the tape, what did you see from Florida's running game that allowed them to be successful early in the game, and then I guess it kind of coincides? What did you see from Elijah Aaron and Arion Carter?
Yeah, they again, man, I give all credit to Florida. You know, we knew they had a really good offensive line. You know, got some good young backs there. They ran hard. You know, they really did. You know, they broke some tackles. As we've already alluded to, that we need to do a better job tackling. You know, schematically, you know, they did a good job of trying to, you know, have some misdirections to, you know, try to hold the backer's eyes, you know, look at the safety's eyes. So, but I'll be honest, they didn't do anything that we hadn't necessarily practiced for, and they hadn't done anything that, for the most part, we're going to continue to see week in and week out in this league. So, for us to go where we want to go, we know we have to all, you know, collectively, you know, from the front to the backers to the secondary, we all have to tackle better. And as far as Elijah and AC goes, you know, obviously those guys are young. They don't have a lot of battle reps under them. But, you know, as I stated earlier, I thought those guys, you know, settled down, you know, and I think you can see that in the second half, you know, with their play.
Ryan and Paige.
Well, with some of the tackling and other issues in the secondary, I guess, how do you handle that position going forward? Is there a chance you guys kind of open things up at corner or any other position to kind of let those guys compete more?
Yeah, I think we're always competing, you know, as cliche as that may sound. You know, we're always competing. You know, it goes back to what we talked about, rotating as many guys as we can. So obviously the better you play, the better your performance is, the more lion's share of reps you'll get. But, you know, I mean, those are the same guys who just helped us win 2 games, you know, and obviously, you know, we didn't come out on top this last game. We didn't get the outcome that we desired. So, you know, we're going to work to correct some things. And, you know, obviously we'll try to continue with our rotation. But, you know, if things don't get better, you know, then obviously you start thinking about what can you do to increase somebody else's playing time, decrease somebody else's playing time. But that's not the message. You know, the message is let's get better. You know, let's get better as players, let's get better as coaches. And let's move forward. And obviously, if somebody, you know, in that second group, you know, steps up when they get their opportunity, you know, then obviously they'll continue to play more. So, you know, that's just where we are at this point.
It seemed like last year Byron Young was kind of one of the main leaders on defense for you all. Who this year do you think is taking a step forward and is helping end game time to do the snap and clear, as you guys say?
Yeah, Jalen McCullough's, you know, done a great job. You know, he's obviously, you know, a guy who's played a lot of football for us here. And, you know, I think he does a good job of trying to, you know, calm the water, so to speak, to make sure guys are able to, you know, snap and clear. I think Big O, Maury Thomas has done a good job, you know, trying to slide into that leadership role. You know, but it's still a young season. You know, I think guys are still, you know, somewhat finding their voice, you know, particularly in, you know, volatile situations. But, you know, again, it just goes back to that love and being able to trust each other that, you know, number one, guys are going to do their job. And if something needs to be said, that they're going to receive it in the right manner, you know, so they can digest it and obviously go out and execute better on the next play.
Last question, Casey.
It can be easy to focus on the negatives coming out of a loss, but having a loss so early in the season, having a first half like you guys did, what are the positives that you view as a coach that you can kind of build on even with the loss?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said, the first part is, yeah, it's again, we want to win them all. You know, our goal is to be 1-0, you know, every single week. You know, unfortunately, it doesn't always happen that way. You know, so then you start to comb through the tape because you're right. You know, it's human nature, you know, to dwell on what didn't go right, didn't get the outcome you wanted, didn't play as well as you need to play in the first half. But there were definitely some positives in the second half, you know, holding them to, I think, 3 points. You know, I don't know what their yards were, but they obviously wasn't what they were in that first half. So I thought we tackled better, you know, in the second half. You know, the fact that those guys didn't give up, they continued to fight and claw for each other, you know, from the first snap to the last snap. Those are all things that you can build on. But at the end of the day, you know, you're never going to be happy, you know, when you don't come out 1-0. But there are definitely some pillars that we can build upon to try to make sure that we're 1-0 the next week.
The game, how did you assess the good and bad from Joe, and what are some things he needs to do better from this week and next?
Yeah, Joe was really good at his decision making, his calmness on the sidelines. He kept the calm within the storm out there. Talking to him on the headset, man, he was after every single drive, he's like, all right, cool, like move on, what do we got coming next? So the guy's really even keeled. His decision making is really good. Was accurate with the football. Like the guy played a good game. Was happy with that. Obviously, we can always be better. We can be pushing for our communication for how we all get on the same page in an environment like that when it's harder to hear and it's not the friendly confines. So that's where we can keep pushing to grow. But his overall game management was very good.
Ben in Austin.
With that game management, how would you assess how Joe is, I guess, getting guys lined up? Obviously, with the pre-snap penalties, does Joe play hand in that, or is it just simply offensive linemen jumping off sides, or just the efficiency of running the offense? How would you assess them there?
Yeah, well, that's the thing with getting guys like the way we play. You got to get yourself lined up. You got to play fast. We're not breaking the huddle, and he's not telling everybody where to go. You got to see a signal and get your cleats in the ground. As the quarterback position, though, it is what it is, right? When that's not operating at a high level, we have to take it upon ourselves to make it operate at a high level, and whatever that is in that moment. One of the things with being up in the box is you can't necessarily get a feel for what is going on actually on the field with the guys. Like, what is the look in the eye? What is the demeanor of our guys? So that's the thing that quarterback's got to be able to be like, all right, let me settle everything down. If we need to switch from a verbal to a silent, help us make that call if you feel like that's what you need. And he did that. That's just a thing that we probably got to a drive or two too late.
Back in August, you kind of described Dante Thornton as a freak. I know his impact's not been as much as I know he would like it to be through the first 3 games. What do you think is holding him back right now?
I think it's like when after the first week or two, he is a freak athletically. Let's start off with that. His size and speed combination. What we do is different, and sometimes there's a learning curve. You've seen it before. Like you saw Jalen Hyatt year 1 to year 2 was different. You saw Dante Saturday night make some big plays down the field. He got some balls on the edge and made a guy miss and got us a nice play back on track when we were behind schedule. So you're seeing him grow. And what I love about Dante is his attitude hasn't shifted. He hasn't gone into, well, I'm not getting the production I want, so now I'm mad. Like, all he's doing is trying to figure out, how do I get more production? What do I do? What do I need to learn? What more do I need to watch? He's been meeting extra, like, as much as anybody, like a freshman. So that's what's great about him, and I expect his productivity to continue to grow as we go through the season.
Vincent and Rob.
Obviously, successive plays and pre-snap penalties, getting behind the chains can impact how fast you go. But the tempo doesn't seem to be what it has been to your standards in the past. What are some of the contributing factors, do you think, to where you guys haven't been able to go quite as fast as you want?
Well, you talked specifically Saturday, it was getting behind the chains. It is what it is. Well, now you got to create, you're playing from 2 drive starter type plays, if you know what I'm saying. Like, you got to do something to start the drive. Well, now I got to start the drive basically over again, so I got to slow it back down, move a body, use a motion, bring somebody in, move somebody out. When you start doing that, it just naturally slows everything down. And there's like a ripple effect of now, like on 2nd and down, instead of 1st and 10, you're at 1st and 15, so you gain 6. You're not in 2nd and short where you got what you want. You're in 2nd and long, so now you're working into 3rd and mediums and 3rd and longs. Well, there's more moving parts when you go to that too, because now you got to format it. You got to change your protection based on the stuff that they're bringing. So it's really a ripple effect on the front end. Usually, if we're slowing down later, it's because we've done something to shoot ourselves in the foot earlier in the drive, and that's what happened Saturday night.
Coach, you guys have been so good running the football the first couple weeks of the season. What wasn't going right there Saturday, and how much did that impact you as a play caller when the ground game was kind of stuck?
Yeah, it was. We hit some big plays in it. Jay Wright ran hard. It was fun to watch those backs. Like they run hard. You say it's the same thing. You get behind the chains. You know, all of a sudden those gains of 4 don't feel as good on 1st and 20. First and 10. They're really good on 1st and 10. Now you feel like you can feed more runs in there. Well, now you feel like you got to push the ball out on the perimeter and push it down the field a little bit to stay out of 3rd and long. So I think it's just a sum of all parts like that, very similar to his question. It's you get yourself backed up early in the drive. It's hard to get into a rhythm. Run game is a rhythm. Pass game is a rhythm. If you're slowing up, moving fast, slowing down, moving fast, slowing down over and over, man, it's hard for the backs, the O-line, to get into a rhythm of how do we move these guys off the ball. You're getting a fresh front every single time. You're getting a chance to stop, look over, get their call, get their cleats in the ground, sometimes sub, so they're getting a much fresher front roll the whole time. And that's just on us handling our business on the front end of the drive.
Adam and then Eric.
When you look at any deficiencies in offense, pre-snap penalties and any of the other things we're asking you about, seeing what you see in practice, is there any area, any deficiency that would have been better if Nico was a quarterback as opposed to Joe?
No.
Why do you say that?
Because it's operation, Joe's operating at a really high level. No.
Joey, it looked like the wide receivers had a better night Saturday than they did maybe the first 2 weeks in certain areas. What's been the biggest difference from Saturday in that group earlier in the year?
I think, once again, similar to the question about Dante, this is very much a rhythm offense, like with what we do, how we operate, with the tempo, with the splits. You're still seeing, like, Joe's played a decent amount of football here, so has Brew, Ramel, Squirrel, but they haven't been a unit for that long. And if you think back to a couple of years ago, it was the same thing. That unit it just takes a little bit to get it where it needs to be. Now, obviously, we're always pushing to make that happen as fast as possible. You want it to be week 1 and it just to light on fire the rest of the season. But that group has pushed really hard to become a unit because that's what it has to be to operate efficiently. It was still a bunch of guys learning each other early in the season. I think what you saw was a group that wasn't affected by the moment because they've played in those type of moments before, and they were able to operate at a really high level.
Ben and Paige.
Josh alluded yesterday to maybe the running back rotation not playing out the way that y'all wanted to on Saturday with Dylan Sampson. I know that running back room is kind of strength in numbers, and that's a good thing, but getting into the season and in games has been kind of difficult to make sure all 3 guys are getting involved.
No, it hadn't been. Saturday night, obviously, Dylan didn't get enough on the field. It is what it is for whatever reason. He knows what we think of him. We know what everybody thinks of him. That's an electric guy with the ball in his hands. We find ways to get that guy the ball, whether it's handing it to him, throwing it to him, using him in the screen game, like whatever it is. That's a guy that'll have the ball in his hands.
Paige.
I know you kind of touched on it a second ago with like Brew McCoy, that being a unit. Where have you seen maybe his role start to develop? He made a few tough catches yesterday. I think he or on Saturday trucked the guy or something. How do you see his role developing, and where is he impressed you so far this season?
Yeah, Brew runs the ball like a big back. You know, that's how he runs the ball out on the edge. He's a guy that has that combination of he can stretch people vertically, but at his size and strength and the mentality that he plays with, like, he's a great guy to just get the ball in his hand right now and just let him find creases, almost like a punt return, and go run. So for Brew, it's not really like, what do we do with him? It's like, man, what don't you want to do with that guy? You want to give him the ball early in games, let him set the tone. He's actually a good guy to get in the blocking game early, let him get his hands on some of those corners that he's bigger than and kind of set the tone on those guys as well. So he's got a rare combination of that size and strength and the mentality playing the wide receiver position that a lot of guys don't have, that he lets you do a bunch of stuff like that.
Wes.
Joey, I know y'all don't go back on the road for a couple of weeks, but when you look at, I guess, the past 3 big games y'all played on the road, you know, it's tougher to operate on the road than it is at home usually, but the offensive numbers look way down in those games. Is there something about the communication, the efficiency, just what's gone into some of those issues that I'm sure y'all want to correct moving forward?
Yeah, it's the same answer. If you're shooting yourself in the foot before the ball snaps, it's hard to get any kind of efficiency going whatsoever, because efficient plays are no longer efficient plays. Efficient plays keep you at a 2nd and long. Well, you have an efficient play on 1st and 15, that's 5 yards, you're still in 2nd and long. So you're playing from behind the chains right from the jump. It's hard to get yourself out of that. Now, what we have to do as a staff and the players on the field is when that happens, everyone settle down. That doesn't mean it has to happen on the next drive. And if it happens on 2 drives, it doesn't have to happen on the 3rd drive. Reset, settle down, fall into the game, and we know how to do this. We know how to operate. You saw it Saturday night in the second half, and when we stopped doing that, it was just bump, 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 bump right down the field, and then we had some issues inside the red zone that held us out of the end zone.
Last question, Casey.
You mentioned how the wide receiver group is coming together as a unit, but they're not quite there yet. What are some of the moments of greatness you've seen in these first 3 games that make you confident that by the end of the season, they're going to be at the same level as the 2022 seasons were?
Yeah, I think they're a group of guys that works really hard. They're intelligent, they're athletic, and they want it really bad. So I have no concern that we're going to operate at a high level in the passing game. They've done a bunch of really good stuff. Like, you watch them practice, like those guys are flying around the field. It's a really good thing to see. That's why as a staff, like, there's never been, all right, what do we do about, like, no, like, this is, it's coming along, we're getting there. We need to get there faster, that's on us. But I have no doubt in my mind that this is going to come together at a high level.